fire station, now called the old fire station because we have a new fire station almost ready to go. Before it was the old fire station and there was no alternative. But I'm here at the old fire station with Chief
Frank Freitzel. Morning.
And I have Deputy Chief filming us so that we can do this inside. If you notice, I'm nice and toasty this morning, which is really good. I appreciate that.
It is cold out there.
So we tried to do this interview yesterday, but you guys called out on 2 calls to assist another town.
Correct. We went to Hudson to assist them with a 2-alarm fire. Worked for about 45 minutes to an hour and helped them, and then came back to town.
Okay. So you got actually hit with 2 calls at once, though, didn't you? But you could obviously only work.
No, we just had that one at that time. We did have one earlier, prior to when you got here. We had somebody come in with a medical case or a condition, and
it was exciting to be here while that was happening because there was like people driving in real fast and like getting undressed in the parking lot, getting their clothes, getting ready to get in the fire and stuff. So it was really kind of exciting to be here, and I was like, oh, I felt concerned in my heart. You guys were going off to fight a fire, so I can't even imagine how your families feel on a regular basis watching you go off. I got just a little tiny bit of that, and it was stressful, but
let's just say they were getting their gear on. They really weren't getting undressed in the parking lot.
Okay, we'll say that. They were getting ready to get into their gear, right.
We don't want to give the wrong impression.
Right, because you'll start getting the girls driving by waiting. People said no. Anyway, so we're here, and we're here to talk to you about the new station. When do you think it's going to open?
So we're really coming up on the end. They're doing the final cleaning in the administrative part of the building and finishing up the apparatus bays. They're probably going to be done within the month, and then we'll need a week or 2 to get some stuff that's not part of the Ekman project, communications and IT stuff that the town is doing independent from the Ekman scope of work. I would say we'll be in the building sometime in April. Running out of the building in April. What is the Ekman
scope of work?
Well, the project, the actual construction. So the town we're handling our own IT. We have our communications vendor handling it, so it's not going through them. We're dealing directly with the IT and the communications.
So are we on time? Are we on budget for this building?
We're both on time and on budget. We're probably a little ahead of schedule and a little under budget.
Oh, I like to hear that. That never happens.
We're not done yet, so
things could still happen.
But yeah, you never know. But we're in a good position.
Are you gonna have a party? Are we gonna have a big party when it opens?
It's gonna take us a little bit of time to get furniture and everything in. We had a bunch of furniture donated. That's in a storage container at the site. So we're going to take some time to get that out, cleaned up, put into place, get our radio system into place, our phone lines and communications data, all that.
But then we'll have a party.
And then we'll kind of move all the apparatus over there, start working out of there, and then we'll have a dedication and open house. And
okay, that sounds good. Maybe we can get a band to come in and stuff.
Once we kind of get settled in.
We have some local musicians. Maybe we can get some dancing in the new fire station. So, on budget, which is really good, and under budget this year again. How many firefighters are you going to be having? Do you currently have?
So we currently have about 35.
35 firefighters. How many are volunteers?
Well, there's 2 full-time.
Yep.
My position is part-time. And then the rest we really have no volunteers in the sense that nobody gets paid. They're what's called paid on call. So they get paid whenever, so when they came in yesterday, as soon as they get notified of the incident, they went on the clock, if you will.
Okay.
And they're paid by the hour for however long they're here or they're working on an emergency situation.
Okay. And then you have grades of firefighters in town. When you came in, everybody was kind of like a firefighter 1.
So there's different levels of certification. Firefighter 1 is the basic level, if you will, that the New Hampshire Fire Academy offers, and it's to the National Fire Protection Association standard. So it's a national standard. Most of the people, there were some when I arrived here 7 years ago now, that were Fire 2, which is the next step up. There were some that had none. Now all of our personnel are at least Fire 1, with the exception of our newest hire, a young lady who's in the Fire 1 program as we speak. So
nice.
She's going to school 2 nights a week and every other weekend for the better part of 6 months.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's about 180 hours long. Between classroom and practical and all that.
So where do the rest of our firefighters fall?
So other than her, all are Fire 1 certified, and would say 60 to 65% are Fire 2, 70% maybe are Fire 2 certified.
What do you find certified?
I am actually, so the curriculum changed. I am what I guess you would call old school level 3.
Okay.
So a little bit above, some specialty courses above and beyond. But again, when I went through the certification programs, they were a little bit different. They were structured differently, and now they've consolidated them into the Fire 1, Fire 2, and then what they call specialty programs, such as ice rescue, swift water rescue, rope rescue, technical heights rescue,
Do you
confined
have all of
space.
those?
I don't. I do have everything but the confined space. So that's a newer program that.
Okay.
But so I do hold all those certifications.
So this is a passion for you. I've noticed.
It is a passion.
I've noticed that
been
firefighters are like a passionate group. They really have to want to be crazy a little to run into a building that's on fire when other people are running out.
And it's not really the building that's on fire. It's helping people.
Right.
Is what it really boils down to. Is you know, you have to have the desire to truly want to help people in their worst time, in their darkest hour.
Yeah.
And no matter what the situation.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's
And
fire,
a lot of that is
whether it's
medical.
a medical emergency.
And what percentage of the calls in town are medical?
About 55 to 60% of our calls are medical.
And is that normal in the surrounding
It's
towns?
actually a little bit low compared to a lot of other communities, but as we talked about a little earlier, we don't have any assisted living facilities. We don't have any urgent care type facilities that tend to drive those numbers up for communities that have those.
Okay. So we currently don't have any ambulance. And is that something you're thinking of adding?
So we don't have an ambulance. We contract with the town of Hudson for an ambulance.
Which station does that come out of?
Generally, it comes out of the Robinson Road Station.
Which is right behind Irving there on the corner.
Right behind the Irving on the West Road end of 102.
Okay.
And that's actually worked out well since they've a couple of years ago, Hudson redid their staffing levels and actually staffed that station 24 hours a day. The ambulance comes out of there, so it allows it to either come up to 102 and go, you know, over towards 3A, Page to Albuquerque, or come up West Road to Hillcrest, Pinecrest. So it gives them a lot more flexibility than if it's coming out of the center of town.
And about how much do we pay for that every year?
Yeah, I want to say our contract is around $60,000 a year, and then the town is responsible for any patient care that isn't paid for by the patient.
Okay. So if you get an ambulance ride and you don't pay for it,
and you don't pay your bill, then the town is responsible for it. So it goes through Hudson's billing process, and then it comes up to the town. It goes through the town's billing process into collection, and if ultimately after all that, in a year or so of
the town pays
efforts, the town pays for the cost of the call.
So, but before that ambulance is dispatched, we get there, and we used to have how many? We used to have how many EMT type people?
So,
when you got here,
there was about 15 people with medical training, and now we're at almost 30. I think 29 actually is the
so almost
number.
Everybody has EMT.
For the most part, I think right now we have 3, maybe 4 that don't have some kind of medical training.
And how many paramedics do we have?
We have 4 paramedics.
And that's the highest level of EMT.
Paramedic is the highest. EMT is the 200-hour program. Advanced EMT is another couple hundred hours, and paramedic is almost 2,000 hours. Takes about a year and a half. Has a ton of clinical time. You're actually in the operating room. You're in the labor and delivery.
Oh my gosh, really?
You're in the cardiac cath lab. Yeah, there's a lot involved to that. So we have 1 full-time paramedic, have had for a number of years now.
Paul Kelly.
Paul, yeah. Prior to that, it was.
So we always have a paramedic in town ready to respond.
So we have a paramedic on duty Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, unless obviously he's out sick, on vacation, or whatever. But we try to fill that with one of our on-call paramedics. So we have 3 on-call paramedics.
We have 4 paramedics now?
We have a total of 4 paramedics.
And we used to have 1.
And we have 1 starting the program in June.
So we'll have 5
at no cost
paramedics.
to us. He's a full-time firefighter.
So I call, and the person I want to respond to that call is the paramedic, the head paramedic that's there.
So yeah.
Not you. I don't care if you're there, right?
Let me go back a second. So when you dial 911, your call, or when someone dials 911, your call goes to Concord. Either to Concord or to Laconia, depending upon which facility is in operation at the time. That is immediately routed to, that individual will start asking you medical questions. All of our telecommunicators in the state at the 911 center are trained EMTs. They're actually trained as well as what's called EMD, Emergency Medical Dispatch. So that gets sent to Hudson. Hudson dispatches an ambulance and our fire department.
So
our
both those get simultaneously
dispatched.
Okay.
So our personnel come in, they'll get in the rescue, they'll respond, and depending on where it is, if we're going to the south end of town, we often meet up at the scene at the same time because they're coming from the south side. If we're going to the north end of town, we're there ahead of them.
Right.
But our rescue carries everything that possible for a paramedic to work in.
And that's something that you've, over the years...
That's something that's
been budgeted over the years.
Been budgeted and been worked through. We have our medical resource agreements with our resource provider. Our ambulance carries the medications that...
not our ambulance,
our rescue, thank you, carries all the same medications carried on an ambulance.
Okay.
So our paramedics can start administering cardiac meds, allergic reaction medications, diabetic medications, breathing medications, long before the ambulance even gets there.
Okay. So that's really who you want to respond, is our paramedics. 'Cause I know there was a question that I saw on the page about whether or not the chief had been there at a medical call. And I was like, wow, should the chief have been there? And I was like thinking about it. And then, as I've talked to you, we don't really care if you're there at that medical call. It's nice when you are there, I'm sure. But
I am a trained EMT with 30 years as an EMT. So
all right, so you have some value there.
Some benefit, yes.
But you actually have people that are more on top of it, that
correct.
get that constant training. So that's really very good to know. And it's good to know, because I know I often wondered why we didn't have an ambulance. But when you look at the cost, how much does it cost to run an ambulance every year?
So... I'd have to run those numbers, but when we built the station, right? when we were doing the last year ago, that question came up. So we looked at the cost of putting on 2 full-time firefighters, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, one of them being a paramedic, and we were looking at almost $1 million just in personnel costs per year
to run the ambulance,
to staff an ambulance in town. That doesn't include the cost of the ambulance, the cost of additional equipment we would need to put on that ambulance.
So if we're paying Hudson $60,000 a year to use theirs, and all of a sudden we've got an ambulance that we can have other people use, it would take a lot of towns using our ambulance.
It would take a number of years to pay off. Your return on investment is
not to mention
many years.
Yeah. So that doesn't seem like unreasonable, as long as we're able to. And
equipment needs to be replaced on a fairly regular basis. Technology changes. Equipment needs to be updated. You have the ongoing costs of. So I mean, we're essentially getting paramedic level ambulance service at under $100,000 a year. So it's really hard to say we want to spend over $1 million to
do our little town
to get the same thing.
Yeah, we are a pretty little town. And we're a pretty little town.
Very pretty town.
Yeah, we are. So how far do you live from here? Speaking of towns.
I am, with the new bridge, 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
To here. I mean, obviously, south end of town is a little longer, north end of town is a little shorter.
But we also have staffed here, we have a full-time deputy chief.
Correct.
That works 40 plus hours a week. And we have a paramedic and we have on-call people. So how confident are you in Doug? I mean,
I have the utmost confidence in all our staff, and that's one of the things that I've worked very hard over the 7 years is to mentor and build a staff that I can be comfortable going away for a weekend and I don't have to be around.
Or call a chief from another town.
And what we work as I went yesterday, and when I arrived at the fire yesterday, Chief Buxton in Hudson, who was running the incident, gave me responsibility for staging. So for the apparatus that was coming in, waiting to be put to work. So and we do that all the time, and it's not uncommon to have, because of our limited staffing during the day, to have a Londonderry or a Hudson chief run the fire at times until we can
you get there.
Until not necessarily I get there, until Doug or the deputy may be committed to working with the first in crew till somebody gets there to run it.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of our mutual aid relationships is we all work together.
Yeah.
And
how many calls have we had this year?
We're at about 135 right now.
In 2019.
So in
and how many did we do last year?
683.
So we're trending on.
We're right on track for last year. Last year we were up about 40 or 50 calls, 60 calls over the year before.
But those were medical?
Split. Again, about 56% I think is the actual number. It was last year. It was in 2017. I really haven't run 2018 numbers yet.
Okay, so we were going to talk about your hiring process, but now we've used up like everybody's time. But I do know that you went through a vigorous process. Your resume was reviewed by
Right.
a panel of chiefs.
The town set a pretty comprehensive list of qualifications for the position in 2012.
I think we had help with that. I don't think that we just are that
including
smart.
bachelor's degree, prior prior command experience and supervisory experience, EMT, firefighter 2, officer level certifications, and so forth. I applied for the position, as I'm sure a number of people, I believe the number I've heard is 12.
Your resumes were reviewed by
resumes were
a
reviewed.
panel of chiefs.
I understand that
Fire chiefs.
they were reviewed by outside fire chiefs.
Yeah, I think they were too.
And I understand the process. I've helped other communities with the same concept.
Yeah.
Then I actually chose to meet with the town administrator at the time to learn more about the position, what
See
the
if
town
you really
was looking
wanted
for,
it.
to see if it was something I was looking to do.
Do you think that was a good thing that you did that?
It was, because I was able to go into my interview with the Board of Selectmen prepared.
Prepared, yeah.
You know, I had done my due diligence.
Yep. So you knew you wanted the job
And
before you.
I felt I was up to the challenges that the job entailed.
Yeah.
And I was interviewed by the Board of Selectmen for about an hour.
Yeah.
And then went through a very comprehensive background investigation, criminal record check, motor vehicle record check, financial background check to ensure that I had no history of bankruptcy or anything like that, because I am the agent for the town's funds for the fire department.
Yeah.
So kind of important there that I don't have a
Misspending problem.
questionable background financially.
Yep.
And then I know they reached out to not only my personal and professional references provided, but well beyond that.
Yeah.
So
it was a pretty thorough search.
Thorough, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very impressed. I had never seen you before. I had interviewed Deputy Nichols about fire permits at one point, and but I had never met you, and I was impressed to see the people who came up to speak at the microphone about how much safer they felt, or how safe they felt doing their jobs with you here, making sure that they were trained to do their positions. So there was probably 12, which is about a third, probably, of the fire department.
And there was some sitting in the non-resident, because some of our call firefighters live on the outskirts.
So is that why they weren't
So
all?
They weren't all on that side because they weren't registered voters. They couldn't sit or speak for that matter. So
okay.
There
But they
was
did
3 or
let you
4 that
speak
were
because
there.
you work here. Because
The
when you
moderator
went to
was
the
kind of let
microphone,
me speak,
I was
and-
like, wow. I was like,
and-
wow. I was like, oh. I
I
shouldn't have been surprised to see you there, but I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I spoke at several.
Yeah,
so
well, I haven't been to
guess you haven't
several.
been there, so.
I have not, and I think that's.
But
I
I've been
think
to
that's
every
why
one,
it's
so.
so valuable that we're
Yeah.
able to talk to
Yeah.
people this way, because I didn't know what you looked like. Now everybody knows your face. So you go back and go, hey, Frank, how you doing? So you really have to now start behaving in town, because people
I
don't
always
know.
behave.
Oh,
I always
how
behave.
boring is that?
I have to.
Yeah, you have.
I have to.
You're held in line.
Mhm.
Okay, I think there must be a very important, significant other that's made sure of that.
Oh, very much so.
So it's really nice that we see your face. I know that there's other things people would probably want to know. So maybe we can come back and do this again and talk
Sure.
about what your next plans are before we have the open house, and we're going to tour the fire department.
Yeah, we'll do a tour. I mean, once all the construction crews are out and it's not too noisy, we can get in there. We can do a tour. And
That sounds
next
great.
Week, the week after, so.
So do we get any questions, Doug, that you want to answer?
Actually, they were already answered by John Brunel.
Oh, thank you, John. All right, so thanks everybody for watching,
Thank you.
and I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there. The roads look pretty good today. Thanks, Jack. And everybody have a happy day.
Have a great day.